We've got Adam Kottler from CallSource, and we've got Casey Jenkins from Jenkins Wynne Automotive. So here we go. Thank you.
So thank you again, everybody, for joining us, and I'd like to thank Driving Sales for giving us the opportunity to host this breakout session. I do want to keep this conversational. I want us to all be able to learn from one another, so if at any point during the presentation you have a question, just go ahead and raise your hand. We'll call on you, and we can address the questions that way. Time allowing at the end, we'll also open it up for any general questions. Just to take you through what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to give you an overview of the current state of service call management. So looking at how effectively those inbound phone ups are being handled for service, and where some of those gaps might appear, where we can really optimize the process and capitalize on all of those inbound leads coming through the phone. Beyond talking about how we're going to capitalize in a general sense, we do have our dealer partner here, Casey Jenkins, and Casey's going to be able to share with you some real-world, tangible tips that you can take back to your dealership tomorrow to really make an impact in the way that you're optimizing those inbound phone leads, specifically for the fixed ops department. And the best part about Casey's tips is they will not cost you a dime. In fact, she's going to emphasize to you the importance of making sure you have that consistent process in place before you do spend more money to make those phones ring. So before I share some of the data that, some of the industry stats and some of the industry data that we're going to review, I want to give you a little bit of background about CallSource to give you an understanding of how we source that data. So over the last 25 years, CallSource has worked with thousands of dealerships across the United States to really help them understand their primary source of inbound leads, the telephone. CallSource started with call tracking, and we started by providing insight to dealers, OEMs, industry partners regarding which marketing sources were actually driving in the highest volume of calls. From there, we really realized that we needed to evolve to focus not just on the volume of calls coming in from each of those sources, but really looking at the quality of leads coming in and ultimately how effectively those leads were being converted to appointments. So to accomplish this, CallSource actually employs a team of human analysts that listen to each and every call coming into our dealer partners. Over the last 12 months, CallSource has listened to and analyzed over 5.5 million calls coming into more than 2,000 dealerships across the country. So we're listening to a lot of calls. That was an impressive number until the NSA came along and made that number look not quite as impressive. But we're second. So as Director of Advisory Services, my job has really been to help dealers understand where those gaps might exist in that inbound lead funnel. We do this for both sales and service. Obviously, today the focus is going to be on fixed ops. So let's take a look at some of that data that we've collected. Let's take a look at the current state of inbound phone traffic for the average dealership. So in addition to all of that phone call data that we've captured, we also surveyed dealers. And what we found through that survey is that almost 90% of surveyed dealers reported an increase in phone calls over the past year. Now, I know there's been a lot of focus on digital, a lot of focus on emails, a lot of focus on websites. And what's interesting is while website forms, submissions, while email submissions, do play a role, half of the dealers we surveyed said less than 15% of their service appointments were being booked online. And a lot of this is due to the emergence of the smartphone. So if we think about it, if we go back into ancient history, let's say 2005, before the advent of the iPhone, what typically would happen is in order to do research about which dealership you're going to have your vehicle serviced at, you would sit down in front of your computer and you would look at all those various dealer websites, you would do your research, and then since you're right there in front of the computer, you might go ahead and fill out a form submission. Nowadays, the primary mode of research is the smartphone. And while smartphones are great for conducting that research, we all know that they can be pretty tedious in terms of entering and filling out those online lead submission forms. So Because of that trend and that increase in the use of smartphones, people do their research on the smartphone, but when it comes time to actually make an inquiry or attempt to set an appointment, they're going to go ahead and click that number right there on the phone, and it's going to generate a phone call. So again, that's why we've seen, and based on our dealer feedback as well as our own analysis, a tremendous increase in the number of phone calls coming into dealerships. Some more information that we gathered from that survey was that 75% of the dealers we surveyed reported that phone calls to service departments were more likely to result in an appointment than email or web submissions. So not only do we see an increase in the number of phone calls coming in, but we know that a phone call lead is a hotter lead than a web submission or email submission. We also know that dealers place a tremendous amount of importance on those inbound phone calls. Yet surprisingly, almost 40% of the dealers that we surveyed said they did not track call-to-appointment conversion rates for their service department. Now, that was despite the fact that over 75% of the dealers reported that a booked appointment was the most important aspect of an inbound call. So let's take a look at some of the numbers in terms of how those calls actually broke out. Based on CallSource information, based on those 5.5 million calls that we analyzed, listened to, and evaluated, we know that 55% of the calls coming into your dealership are revenue-generating opportunities. So that could be for sales, that could be for parts, or that could be for service. The other 45%, that's everything from vendors like us calling you. That's everything from personal calls, employee calls, solicitations, and certainly this time of year, political calls. So the more phone numbers you have, the more other types of traffic you're going to get coming through. But ultimately, about 55% of the inbound traffic over the phones are revenue-generating opportunities. Now, by far, the biggest bucket of these is service. We can see that only 26% of that subset of revenue-generating opportunities came in for sales. Another 21% came in for parts. And a full 52%, so more than half of the revenue-generating calls coming into your store are calling for service. Now, we've also found that industry-wide, as an average, only 31% of those inbound service opportunities are converted to appointments. And further, 27% of those inbound service phone calls are mishandled due to either poor process or lack of phone skills training for the people handling those calls. So let's take a look at what it means to optimize that inbound phone lead management process. So we know from NADA data that the average service revenue per RO is about $257. Now, obviously, that's a tough number to put a finger on. I'm sure some of you see a much higher average, some of you see a much lower average. But again, the average number there that we're working with is $257 per RO. There's also obviously a difference between customer pay and warranty work. And this is an important distinction because what we found is that, with warranty work, customers are much more likely to just visit the dealer closest to them. They're not going to do a lot of comparison shopping because, again, they're not footing the bill for that service. So for that more lucrative customer pay work, it's all the more important to differentiate yourselves. And the way to differentiate yourselves is by providing that superior customer experience. And that all starts with the first impression, which is the phone call. So let's take a look at some numbers here. Based on that $257 average, and based on CallSource data that we've collected, that shows us that the average dealer sees just under 250 inbound service prospect calls in a given month. So that's a tremendous amount of opportunity coming through the phones. Now, we also saw that on average, only 31% of those are being converted to appointments. So what would it mean if through improved process, through additional phone skills training, we could drive that number up 10%. For each 10% we're able to drive that number up, we're going to be generating an additional 25 service appointments every month. That's worth just under $6,500 per month in additional revenue, or over $77,000 in additional revenue over the course of a year. Again, this is money you're already spending on marketing to make the phone rings. This is simply about taking the steps to make sure that you're getting the most bang for your buck possible. So there's this tremendous opportunity out there for service departments. We know that the average dealership is leaving money on the table, and that there are several areas of gaps in that inbound lead process. When we're working with our clients, we focus on a few key areas, which we refer to as the STACK model. So STACK is an acronym, and what we're talking about with STACK is structure, transparency, accountability, and consistency. So structure is where it all starts. We need to make sure that we have processes in place for every situation. Whether that's inbound web form submissions, whether that's email leads, or whether that's phone calls, we want to make sure that everybody in the dealership understands what the proper flow is so that we can optimize and capitalize on as many of those leads as possible. Without having a consistent process in place, and more importantly, without communicating that process throughout your dealership, it's very difficult to set reasonable expectations. Everybody has to have a thorough understanding of what's expected of them in order for this process to work. Now, the next step is transparency. A process is great, but without the transparency to know whether or not that process is working, it's really a shot in the dark. The way to achieve that transparency is to make sure that there's comprehensive reporting on each stage of that inbound lead funnel. That's the only way you're going to be able to identify where your gaps lie. Whether it's customers not being able to reach a live agent, whether it's issues with your phone system, whether it's issues with the way those calls are actually being handled, none of that can be understood unless we have full transparency, and the way to achieve that is through reporting. And data is great, but data is only as good as it is utilized. And that means making sure that all managers, all stakeholders, everybody that has something to gain from improving that lead conversion has full visibility into that reporting. We also want to make sure that that reporting is tied to the metrics that we know drive success. So are we measuring the right things? I know we all have a lot of systems in our dealerships that are capable of providing us with a lot of information. The idea is to distill that information down to the key performance indicators, the ones that we know ultimately are going to drive improvement. The next step we're going to talk about is accountability. So it's great to be able to measure all of these key performance indicators. It's great to have an understanding of where those gaps lie. But unless we're holding individual team members accountable to those metrics, the system is never really going to get off the ground. So that means providing key performance indicators and metrics, not just at the store level, not just at the department level, but we need to be measuring these things down to the individual employee level. We need to understand who it is that we need to work more closely with. A lot of our customers have experimented in the past with kind of a shotgun approach to training. And the problem with that is you have a wide mix of team members at your store. You have some very seasoned veterans, and you have some people that might be a lot newer. And their needs from a training standpoint are going to differ greatly. Only by measuring their current performance level, only by understanding where they are currently, can we speak directly to them, and can we train them in a way that's really going to resonate with them. I've seen countless times where a dealership might gather the whole team in the room and take them through how to state the greeting, how to introduce the name of the store and their own name. And while that's very important for some, you've immediately lost your veteran employees because they've been doing this for X number of years. They're very comfortable with that. So the idea is you want to provide actionable insight, targeted training to specifically the people that need it. And the only way you're going to know that is through consistent measurement and accountability based on that measurement. The last piece of the puzzle here is consistency. Consistency is all about benchmarking, setting reasonable goals, and then managing to those goals. That's the only way that we're going to ultimately achieve consistency. We can't set goals if we don't know where we've been and where we are now. And that comes back to that measurement piece. And by setting those attainable, measurable goals, we can slowly start to chip away at those gaps and really capitalize on all of that opportunity that is coming through those inbound phone lines. So to talk a little bit about how we can implement this stack model in your dealerships, and to talk a little bit about the real process changes that can really optimize those inbound phone leads, I'd like to introduce Casey Jenkins from Jenkins Wynne Automotive.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for choosing to be in here. We're very humbled that you want to be in here for a few minutes. And really, I'm just going to speak from a dealer's point of view. And so I'm going to give you lots of practical tips that I have written down right here. So we're going to talk practical in just a minute. But as Adam said, I'm Casey Jenkins from Jenkins Wynne, Ford Lincoln Honda. I'm third generation dealer. My grandfather started our store in 1949. We are located in central Tennessee, almost on the Kentucky border. We're Tennessee's largest Ford dealer. This is a picture from 1949 of, they used to have a new car giveaway every year, and so we have lots of historical photos that take us way back. But my degree is in education from college, and one day, my senior year, I woke up and it was just as clear as day, like a light switch turning off. I just knew that I wasn't being called to education anymore in a traditional sense, but I was being called to, I didn't know what I was being called to, actually. So I called my dad. I was like, Dad, I got to tell you something. I don't really want to be a teacher anymore. He said, you know what, promise me 1 year in the car business, and if you love it, stay. And if you don't, we'll find something for you to do. What's funny about that is that's a full circle statement that I had no idea just until a couple years ago, that my grandfather said the same statement to my dad when he was taking his exiting exam as a senior in college. He was about to be a banker, and he already had a job lined up in the banking industry, and my grandfather said, promise me 1 year in the car business. And so I'm honored and proud to carry on my grandfather and my dad's legacy. It's been a wild adventure. So that's who I am, that's where I live. So our world, as we know it, has changed. And I heard this recently, and I just thought that this would be a great way to start our practical conversation, because I'm a practical thinker, and so I want to help give you practical solutions. And as Adam said, everything that I'm about to say costs little dollars. It just mainly costs effort. But Uber is the world's largest taxi company, but owns no vehicles. Facebook is the world's most popular media owner, yet owns no content. And Airbnb is the world's largest accommodation provider, yet owns no real estate. So everything that we have been accustomed to is completely changing, and this is a good stat right here. And so my question to you is, our conversation with our customers is changing. Our customers' expectation is changing, but have we as dealers, are we embracing the change? Are we taking our agenda and putting it to the side and listening to the voice of the customer? So just a question, how many of you, and you don't have to raise your hand, but just think about this, how many of you survey your customers and hear what your customers are saying? Just think about it for a minute. Okay, good. Got some bold answers in here. So that's kind of where I started. I graduated from Dealer Academy, so I circled in every department, but then when I graduated Dealer Academy, I came back to the store. I was like, well, now what? And one thing I started doing is listening to the voice of the customer. But how do you do that? We have an email that goes out after 24 hours of the RO being completed, or 24 hours after the sold being marked delivered in our system. And so it's just a quick five question to the customer, but basically it says, how was your experience and how did we do? And I read every survey and every email and every review. And if you haven't put that in your daily rhythm, I strongly encourage you to, because listening to the voice of the customer and diminishing your own agenda is a big deal. And I know it's a world changer, but I would strongly encourage you. One thing that I realized after listening to the voice of the customer and also kind of just seeing the evolution of communication, for a long time it was emails. We were bombarded with emails, but that really has shifted in our industry. It's more calls. We're getting 4-to-1 calls now. And so what I was thinking about, and I started kind of really developing our marketing side of our business, and I was like, why are we spending all this money to bring customers in and we don't even know how to answer the phone? Better yet, we don't know how to answer the phone and we don't know where to take that customer in the process. And so our customers' expectations have changed, but have we as dealers?
Yeah, and this is a great example of the wealth of data, but it's about what you do with it. Of those that did mention that you survey your customers, maybe we could just hear a couple thoughts about how you act upon that information. Is there a way that you compile it? How frequently do you do it? And what are some steps you've taken as a result of the feedback that you've got?
At our store, so we send out an email after service, and we basically thank the guest, and just, if we did a great job, tell everybody. If we didn't, please let us know. So if we get whatever feedback we get, good, bad, or indifferent, and it's based on the individual that they dealt with, so the service advisor also. I get it, I'm a dealer, so I get it, and my general manager gets it. And then we take a look at it, and if it's actionable or we need to get back because we dropped the ball and we didn't do something properly, it goes to the respective managers, obviously, whether it's parts or service, and our fixed operations manager, and they reach out to the guest and get it handled. We do a follow-up, and we make sure that the guest is looked after and that we make corrections to our process if it's something big, if it's just a minor blip of.
So that's a good point. And communication is linear, but are our phone calls. So often, and we can go to the next slide, but so often by listening to the voice of the customer, our customers were getting angry with, and we have 92% repeat rate. So we have a really strong business model for the since 1949. And we have loyalty with our customers, but still, by listening to these surveys and reviews, our customers were getting angry, getting caught in the unending phone loop. And so, like to your point, the communication, you took that communication and you took it to the next step and the next step and the next step. But customers who get caught in the unending phone loop never get to the next step, and that really frustrates customers. So one of my favorite quotes is from Wayne Gretzky, and he says, I don't skate to where the puck is, I skate to where it's going to be. And basically that's the kind of conversation that we're going to have today, is a very forward thinking, because I know that the buzzword is digital, and I know that the buzzword is bringing customers in. But really, if you can't another quote is Bear Bryant, go back to the basics, right? And if you can't handle the basics, then there's no need in spending millions of advertising dollars. And so that was a humbling thing for us to look at, just to be very honest with you. I thought, hey, we're doing good. We're customer satisfaction, loyalty rate, all these greats. But then when I listened to the actual voice of our customer and realized there's a pain point here. And so this is where we're going. We're skating to where the puck is going and not really where we are right now. All right, next slide.
And just a brief anecdote, obviously being with CallSource, working with automotive clients for 5+ years, being a call tracking company, we set up a lot of those phone trees for our customers. And a lot of times when they're asking us for help setting them up, it's to, oh, well, we don't want to inundate the receptionist, so we want 6 options for the customer to be able to choose their department. And a lot of the thinking is geared around their own internal process, trying to solve their internal problems. And we really want to flip that on its head and think about how can we solve the customer's problems. And that's where a lot of times, it really takes thinking outside the box and looking not just at the outcomes, but stepping back and saying, why is this happening? Why are so many people calling for sales ending up at service? Is it because they're impatient? They don't like sitting through phone trees? Because I know I don't, and probably most of us in this room don't like sitting through long phone trees. But it's a matter of looking at the why behind the outcome, and not just solving for that outcome, but solving for the underlying behaviors, the underlying consumer mindset that's creating those problems within your dealership, and solving it from a customer-first perspective.
in our industry, we can all agree that relationship is the key for our business. If the customer doesn't have a relationship with us, then they don't trust us. And if they don't trust us, then we can't carry them forward in the cycle, whether it's for sales or for service or parts or body. So basically, we got to earn the right to be heard. And two things, back to the Wayne Gretzky quote and just thinking forward, is we are now in a microwave society. My daughter learned how to type on a keyboard and spell before she learned to write with a pencil. That's where we are right now. That's where our kids are. That's where the generation that we're raising is. And with that, she can do all her homework on her iPad. It's just a click away. She's 7 and in 2nd grade, and she expects now, immediate, instant gratification. And it's just the world that we live in right now. Good, bad, or indifferent, it is our world. And so just remember that your customers are in this world too. So what I mean by microwave society is we expect a full course meal within 30 seconds, and we want it hot and fresh and organic even, right? So when our customers get caught in a phone loop, and they are used to an instant gratification or an instant feedback, and then they get caught and they keep going around and around, or worse, they reach a voicemail, they're going to disconnect and hang up. And that's, you don't know what you don't know. And so that's kind of where I started learning about CallSource. Is I did immense research before I ultimately went with them, but I realized that we needed help. And I knew that our customers, we were not catching them hot in the moment. And so that's what I wanted to encourage you to do, is kind of take a step back from where you are in your purpose and ask your team, are we catching our customers hot in the moment, whatever that moment is.
And along those lines, one of the other shifts that we've seen really in the industry and that we need to be cognizant of is that customers are a lot more informed. I know we've heard this probably at every seminar going back for the last 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. But because they're a lot more informed, they have a lot less patience for lack of information when they do place that call. By the time the customer has picked up that phone, we have to assume that they've done a lot of their due diligence. And so we really want to be able to get to them as quickly as possible, which means keeping them out of those phone loops. And we also want to make sure that we have as much information ready to go as possible. So whether that's having your schedule available so you can book that appointment immediately on that call, that's what we need to be doing. Offlining a call is as good as turning away business. If you tee up that callback, you can be assured that on that handy list on their smartphone, they have the next dealer queued up or the next service shop queued up, and they're dialing that next shop before they're waiting for you to call back. So it really underscores the importance of converting those inbound phone ups to appointments on the initial opportunity, because you very may well not get a second chance.
And to help bridge the gap, so I didn't know where we stood, and so we did a trial with CallSource, and it was almost sickening where we were, just to be very honest with you guys. It took me a step back, because here I thought that we were doing pretty good, and but when I listened to the trial and I saw the feedback from the trial, it really made me take a step back and go, whoa, we do not have this piece of our business completely straight. And so moving on, we'll go to the practical tips. And so the phone became our greatest area of opportunity. And we recently moved stores. Our business is way up for sales and service and parts and body. So it's been a wild adventure of a year. But even so, it just came back to the same point, the same key goal. Why are we spending advertising dollars? Why are we bringing our customers in if we cannot answer the phone correctly and have professional phone skills? And so that's what I wanted to talk about today, is we're just going to go over some practical changes that we made. Other than one idea, it really doesn't cost anything. And so that's the encouragement that I want to give to you guys today, is that you don't have to spend a lot of money. And so yes, we did make a lot of changes, you can see on this paper, but maybe just one of these changes will be the key to epic success for your store. And so this is what worked for us. So we did the trial from CallSource, and it really provided exactly the state of emergency that we were in. So from that, we gave our team, and we got lots of team input, and so this is where also it's very important, but get the input from your team because they're the front line. They're listening to these calls, they're taking these calls, they know a lot. And so we gave everyone a sheet of paper and said, in a dream world, what would this look like for you? Think with a customer hat on, but also think with an employee hat on. So now we have a daily workflow plan, and every morning the service manager, the lead technicians, the service scheduler, and the porters, they all have a quick huddle and say, this is our flow. We are heavy on diesel. We cannot schedule any more diesel until this day. Or our Ed, who is one of our car mechanics, he just got his shoulder surgery done, so don't schedule. And so we're able just to talk about real world, so that why would we schedule 15 diesel appointments if we don't have a diesel tech that's available or even a stall that's available? So go through your daily workflow plan. That was practical tip number 1. Practical tip number 2 is we have phone skill training each month. Again, it costs nothing, it's just accountability. Oh, mercy, we have 5 minutes.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, let me talk fast. Phone skill training, and we go through reports on an individual basis. So for our team, we know where they stand on the phone skills. And so maybe they're doing great in one area, maybe they need help in another area. The phone loop and the status calls. For the status calls, we realized we were getting an influx of calls. And we realized most of them were people asking for the status of their vehicle. That's a real-world question, right? So we have now put a policy in place for our service advisors. They're going to say at the front of a service experience and say, we are going to call you by 2 o'clock today to let you know the status of your vehicle. So that helped calls not come into us, and that also gave our customers a time expectation. Our phone call route no longer goes to service advisors because our service advisors are with people all day long. They can't answer the phone and be in front of somebody. So we have a service scheduling team of people that just answer phone calls for service. We do not transfer a call unless there's a live human being on the other line, and that is huge for customers. No voicemails. They will hang up before they reach a voicemail because they're impatient. They want it right now. And so what we did to combat that is we have radios and headsets, and that's what cost us money. So it cost us a little bit of money to get headsets for everybody. And what we can do is our service scheduling team can call over to the service lane and say, hey Larry, I have Mr. Smith on the phone, can you take the call? And Larry will buzz back and say, I'm with the customer right now. And so we're not going to transfer that call. We're going to say, Larry's with the customer right now. It's 1 o'clock. We will have him call you back before 1:15. And so we give him we give customer a time expectation on when we're going to call back. Again, costs nothing, but it's courtesy. We changed our phone greeting. So instead of saying press 1 for service, press 2 for sales, we have flopped that because customers are in a hurry. They're just going to press really quick and go with whatever they want to really quick. So instead, we changed it, and we also changed the voice of our prompt. And the prompt now says, for service, please press 1. So they have to listen to the statement. And that has helped route the calls where they are supposed to go so that customers won't get in a phone loop. We have a service scheduler on the service lane so that she can help kind of be our eyes. And I say we knew that we were in such a state of emergency that I put my desk in the middle of our service scheduling team, and that's where I'm sitting right now. And I'm taking these calls, I'm listening, I'm understanding what's going on. They give me feedback, I give them feedback, and we're able to work on this as a team versus just me saying, this is what you do. This is how we have changed our culture completely. We also went to ring groups. So our service advisors for Ford, just as an example, we can dial a 4-digit number and it goes to all 7 lines. And so that way we're not ringing, it's coming back, ringing, it's coming back, ring. So create a ring group. It's free with your phone company. So on our website, we realized we did have numbers stacked for parts department call here, for service call here, for sales call here, and customers were just clicking the first number they came to, and then they got caught in the loop because technically that wasn't the right number for them. That's where our agenda got in the way. So instead, we just have one number on our website, they click it, and then that's when they hear our updated prompt that says for service press, for sales press, that sort of thing. The other thing is we set appointment reminders. So we send an email out 48 hours before the appointment, and then we send a text 24 hours. Be sure to get that double locked in. But we send a text 24 hours in advance just to remind customers. So here's our results, and I'm glad, I know he's just skimmed past that, and I'm glad to top one off on anyone or call me at the store at any point. But with our RO count came a huge influx of phone calls. So our business has increased, therefore our phone calls have quadrupled. And so that's why we knew that we needed to get this correct. We know that when an appointment is confirmed, that the likelihood goes from 33% of a show rate to a 66% show rate. And I like those odds, and I know you do too. And so figure out a way how you can confirm that appointment, because then you have a plan and you can work the plan, and when you work the plan, you can be efficient. And then your team can be efficient, it minimizes stress, everybody wins. So just in the first month of us onboarding with service with CallSource, we went from appointment rate from 27 to 48%, and our team celebrated that. That was a good moment. We've been with CallSource for a year now. It was so successful and eye-opening on our fixed ops side that we've now onboarded with our sales side. I was telling Adam the other night that, so CallSource has this great tool, and it's called alerts. And so I get pinged on my email anytime a call is disconnected. And so we're able to capture that call, we're able to call them back and say, I'm so sorry we missed your call, how can we serve you? Well, we got 3 of those on the sales side, and one of our sales schedulers called, and she set an appointment with all 3. That would have been opportunity down the drain had I not gotten that deal saver alert sent to my email. So we were able to set those appointments. They're actually all appointments for today because these calls came in on Saturday. And so there's tools available and resources available to help you take your business to the next level too. So these are all practical tips. I encourage you, it doesn't cost hardly any money, but I encourage you just kind of step out of your whirlwind and think about it from a customer's perspective, and go back to that Wayne Gretzky quote that we're not going to skate to where the puck is right now, we're going to skate to where it goes. Any questions? I know doors are opening.
Thank you, everyone. And Casey and I will be available. We'll hang out outside here. If anybody has any questions, feel free to approach us. We're happy to help. We'll work with driving sales to get some of the data points that we shared sent out to you all as well. Appreciate everybody's time, and have a great show.
Thank you guys for coming.